Hello, welcome to the sideboard here at the StarCityGames.com Open Series in Cincinnati. I'm Nick Miller alongside Sliver Master Adam Bowman. How you doing, sir?
Pretty good.
You've been the talk of the tournament all of a sudden. You know, the word spreads in the tournament hall. There's a Slivers guy at X1, round 7, round 8.
Yeah.
So we catch wind. Not only Slivers, but Collected Company Slivers, a card that's just been making all kinds of decks viable. We've seen people try this in Standard. We saw them try to do it in Legacy. They've kind of stopped for Merfolk. But now you're kind of taking up the same space as Merfolk in Modern, but at even more powerful, I'd say.
Well, it really does. It does the kind of same thing. It's the Lords, and you have a lot of unique effects. You get a lot more power and a lot of options with Slivers, but you lose some consistency. It's not as, just specifically today, it's not as much of an issue as usual. A lot of people are running chokes over Blood Moons, and spreading season is not a real problem for this deck.
Right, this deck dodges the chokes and all of the mana hate because you have a very unique mana base in this deck.
Yeah.
You've got Cavern and the new Sliver Hive Lord, or Sliver Hive. Hive Lord's still to come, trust me. That one was an all-star on camera. But so you have a bunch of cards that produce all the mana, and then you have a fetch land base that allows you to get the colors of mana you need as well on top of Mutavault.
Yeah. Well, I've got the 4 Mutavault, 4 Caverns, and 4 Sliver Hives, and it's rare to see Mutavault because it only makes colorless mana in a 5-color deck. But between Cavern and Sliver Hive, I can cast just about everything I need. And of course, Aether Vial helps a lot with the colors. I also went up to 4 Mana Weft. Just Mana Weft Sliver is really helpful for just powering out everything.
Right, and one thing that's kind of noticeable about Slivers, unlike Merfolk, most of your Lords and your creatures only have 1 colored mana. Sure, there's a couple of the unique ones in your deck that require 2 mana, but most of the Lords and things are only 1 colored mana.
I can play just about every Sliver in the deck off of 1 Cavern or 1 Sliver Hive. I don't need that much.
All right, so we're going to go over them here. We've got a lot. You've got the Lords, so to speak, as Sinew Sliver and Predator Sliver, sort of like the old school Muscle Sliver effect, as well as Sedge Sliver, a card that's very interesting here, because this is why you sort of have your fetch land, swamp, dual land mana base, so you can turn on an extra Lord.
I have to run some extra fetches. I was running Confluences, but I realized that even with 4 colorless lands in a 5-color deck, I was still consistently just hitting all the colors I needed. I didn't need the Confluences, and that's when I was able to put in Sedge Sliver, which has just been a powerhouse the whole day.
And that was a card you were struggling to find yesterday morning, but we're able to come up with 3 copies?
The deck should have 4 copies. I only have 3. I entered the tournament late because I was not able to find Sedge Slivers. I went to every vendor, I asked every person in the hall I could find, and it took a while. And I decided the deck just was so much fun, I decided to enter late anyway.
Right. So you went 8-0 technically yesterday with, you took a loss because you were late to register, but 8-0 yesterday. You start off today with a loss against Twin, the fun police.
It was a good time.
But still have a great day ahead of you. We've talked about the Lords, now we talk about the other things. We've got...
really, I would like to say the Lords have been great today. They're surprised, they seem the same, but Predatory Sliver is Slivers you control, and Talon Sliver is all Slivers, which has been really relevant because Merfolk decks run Mutavault, so you have to be careful with that. But also, Merfolk decks have been running Threads of Disloyalty and Shackles, and they've been citing them in against me. And I've won a few matches from people taking my Sinew Slivers, because I still they can take it, and I still receive all the benefits.
Yeah, we've seen that, the new M15 Slivers that only affect your team versus the ones that affect the board. I'm sure there's been some Mutavaults on both sides of the tables with some pretty crazy creature types.
It messes with the board a lot to have a Mutavault out.
Gale Rider Sliver gives your creatures flying, so that's important for evasion.
Really important. It's also just a 1-mana Sliver.
Yeah.
It's the best 1-mana Sliver currently that you can run in Modern.
Your curse catcher, so to speak. Then Blur Sliver gives your creatures haste, which allows you to do crazy things with Collected Company if they find a way to wrath your board.
Yeah. It also lets me, it lets my Slivers attack when they come in, but I can do things, it lets me play a Mutavault. Mutavault has haste too. It lets me add mana the turn I play a Sliver, so if I'm playing against someone who I'm not expecting a lot of sweepers from, then I'll throw out a critical mass of Slivers so they can't bolt them all down. Sometimes you want that, you just want to play out your whole hand instead of hitting them.
Right. With Collected Company, you've got some resiliency against the sweepers too, so you can kind of throw your creatures out and then build up again. You've got Diffusion Sliver, which was an all-star, you know, against the pinpoint removal decks, really slows them down. Yeah. And then you can combine those with the Lords to make the removal almost, you know, non-existent.
It makes it really difficult. Sometimes they'll want to double bolt or bolt in Kolaghan's command, and you just don't have the mana with one diffusion out. I won a match yesterday. I managed to put out all 3 diffusions, and they had no removal spells in their deck effectively. Turn 2 diffusion is really hard for a lot of decks to beat because, especially with like the Twin and Grixis matchups, they'll want to remove all your creatures as you play them, and just stopping them from killing your creatures for 1 turn is really relevant.
Just being able to gain the momentum of that into some of your Lords just creates a mass that they can't really deal with. So Mana West Sliver lets you cast all your spells, allows you to do crazy things. In conjunction with Sentinel Sliver, you can have Vigilance, attack, then tap them for mana and do more things.
Exactly. Sentinel Sliver it doesn't seem that strong. It's a pretty minor ability, but it's got, so most of the Slivers are a 1/1 base. Even the Lords have a 1/1 base, they just happen to pump themselves. But it's 2 power for 2 mana, and that's something that the deck really needed. But the more I played with it, I realized, like I was only running 1 before, the more I played with it, I realized, well, like you said, I can attack and then tap for mana. I can attack and I can leave blockers up, hit those Goblin Guides, hit block Nicottles. My creatures are usually bigger than Nicottles against Zoo. And then it's also relevant after sideboard, but I think we'll talk about that in a bit.
Right, it allows you to be able to attack and then have Abrupt Decay mana if your lands aren't perfect.
One of my favorite tricks is attacking, and then after blockers are declared, I can tap 4 Slivers and Collected Company. That's been good today.
All right, now some more utility ones. Dark Heart, which is great against burn, lets you gain life and things.
Yes, I've got 1 Dark Heart and 1 Siphon. Siphon, if I play it on turn 3 and they don't deal with it right away, then burn can't win anymore. I just gain too much life. But if I don't get the Siphon until too late, then they'll Skullcrack me on the key turns and I don't gain that life. Which is why I have the Dark Heart. It's a 2 mana 2/2, which, like with Sentinel, is really important in the deck. But also, if I sack a Sliver to gain 3 life and they Skullcrack me in response, I can still sack other Slivers. And I'm okay giving up a few Slivers against, especially with cards like Sliver Hive.
Just trying to get above a certain amount of life so they can't kill you.
That threshold is really important.
Necrotic Sliver was an all-star in your matchup on camera at the end of round 2, allowing you to just basically turn all your creatures into Vindicates.
Yes. Every Sliver I have is a Vindicate. It's really been amazing. Against the mid-range decks, I mean, even just hitting a land sometimes can really ruin some of the, like the Grixis and the Jund matchups.
Patrick Sutherland was very impressed by the ability to just turn all your creatures into things that they have to deal with, or you can shoot down their creatures. Stops the Splinter Twin combo, things like that.
It really is. It's rare that you get a deck where every creature on board and that might be in my hand is relevant. They have to worry about everything.
So that's the main deck. We have talked about all those Slivers. Now there's more Slivers in the sideboard.
I would like to say really quick, Sedge Sliver the regeneration on Sedge Sliver, I did not expect regeneration to be so relevant in Modern. But a lot of decks just can't deal with it.
Yeah, I guess with other than Path, people are just playing damage spells. You can regen everything. All right, Sliver Hive Lord. We saw this one vialed in for the win on camera. 2 of these, are these mainly for control, or where are these coming?
I was running them for mid-range, like the mid-rangier, which is I guess is a word. Jund builds. They're strong blockers. They're really hard to deal with. What I realize is that Jund will have been keeping my creatures dead most of the time. So it's still a strong body, but they'll play a Lily and Sacker. It really is more for the control matchups, which yesterday I thought I was playing against. I violed it in response to Supreme Verdict more than once, which is very satisfying. I would like to run 1 Hive Lord, 1 Legion after today. I cut the Legion, but sometimes I just want that huge power boost.
Well, pairings are going up. We're going to run over the last couple ones. Unfortunately, we won't have time to go over the explanations, but you got Telekinetic, Shadow, Harmonic, and some more life gain and Necrotics. Pairings are going up. We want you to get into this for the action, so excuse me. Stay tuned for more Modern action. Adam, thanks for joining me here in the sideboard.